So this is part 2 of how to make your own PVC pipe bow, and basically I'm just making the measurements and the cuts, lining everything up before I heat the pipe up, start bending it into shape. So let's have a look at the progress so far, shall we? I've also got one skinny little tent pole which I've cut the ends off, which I'm going to use to reinforce the centre. Just cutting some duct tape ready so that I have it ready, so when I want to wrap the tent poles together I just have a little bit ready. So it's going to be tricky doing this, holding the camera and the tape with one hand. Anyway, cut that with my trusty craft knife, which I use for laying carpets, of course. Right, so here's the game plan. Here's my pipe, which I've marked at 5 feet, and then I've marked back from each end 7 inches. That's 7 inches, because that's what I want to make sears for it, and the sears are going to be between 6 and 7 inches. I'm not sure which yet. Probably 7 inches, because I'm going to put at least 2 inches back into the pipe, and then I'm going to have the tent pole so it sticks out 1 inch into the sear, and then I'm going to reinforce the sear with some 1/2 inch pipe, which I'm going to put inside this pipe. And then I've marked the centre, which is half of 5 feet, which is 30 inches. And then I've done the same on this end. Just marked back from the end 7 inches, and made another mark because I wasn't sure if I was going to do 6 or 7 inch sears, but anyway. Well, I'm not sure the best way to show you this because I've got next to nowhere to put anything in my little flat. But if I can do it in my flat, I'm pretty sure you can do it in your garage or in your garden. So let's get these cut and put together, and then I'll show you from there. So what I'm doing with the poles is I'm just going to move them back so the poles are actually long enough each end, which is going to be about, I don't know, 9 or 10 inches. And I'm going to have the little reinforced tent pole in the centre, so it looks like that. Let's do this then because you can see the light. That's the little skinny reinforced one. And I'll have about 10 inches each end, and this will go inside the pipe at the centre, held in by bound together by tape. That's all it needs, because once it's jammed in there it's not going to be going anywhere. And then where I've marked the pipe, the end of the rod's going to go into the sear about 1 inch, and the sear is going to be reinforced with 1/2 inch pipe down in the middle of the 3/4 inch pipe. So all I need to do now is tape these rods together and then cut the pipe, and then we can start heating it. So the tent poles are taped together in position. The way it works is, is because there's 2 poles here and they're going to be tightly fixed inside the PVC because they're going to be a tight fit, is it's going to flex more at the tips than it is at the centre of the pole. Now this little extra one, this little extra skinny tent pole, I was going to put in the middle to reinforce the middle section. I'm not going to do that for 2 reasons. One is it's going to be a tight squeeze in the centre of the PVC anyway, because these tent poles are so thick, 11mm each. And the other one is I want the poles to flex more in the middle. I want there to be a nice even distribution of torsion or stress is not a very good word for it. But anyway, an even distribution throughout the length of the poles. So they're gonna flex more on the tips, but 2 is going to be more than enough to make it a very strong bow anyway. So all I need to do now is get my tape. I'm going to tape along the whole length of that rod just to hold them together. So I've got my pipe cut to length, which is 4 feet. And I've got my rods, my fibreglass tent poles taped together, just so they don't slide about, and those together, centres line up about 1 inch longer each end, and I've checked, and together the poles, when the tubing is heated up and just made into a bit of an oval, 2 poles will fit in there okay. So what I'm doing now is just making the tips, which are called sears I believe, which is probably an Arabic expression. All I'm doing is just heating it up on the hob, like that, slowly heating it up. You'll see it starts to go shiny and starts to go wobbly and melt. And then I'm taking it over here, just flattening it on a bit of wood basically. Just bending it with an oven glove to get it to the shape I want. So that's one of them done. So now I've got to do the other one. I'm using the hob just to holding it with a wooden spoon for a handle. I've got an oven glove ready, and basically you just heat it up until it becomes like jello, and then you can mould it. And what I'm doing is just flattening it between 2 planks basically, so get it into a nice curved sear shape, and then flattening it on the end so it's all nicely tapered. And if you keep moving it, the heat gets more evenly distributed. Because PVC is a polymer, it doesn't actually melt, it just becomes plastic or elastic about 200 degrees C, so you can mould it into shape, and as it cools it will just fix in shape. So as you can see, it's already quite bendy, so I'll flatten that down and then show you what it looks like when I've finished. So I've flattened that between 2 planks of wood. You see the general idea, and then you heat it up again, bend it and mould it into shape basically. But make sure you've got an oven glove handy because it gets quite hot. Just heating it up so I can put the curve in it now. What happens is when you heat it and it's not quite in the shape you want it, when you reheat it, it starts to puff out again. So you can like just iron out any little creases you've got in there, or if it bends in a way you don't want it to. So you just keep heating it up and remoulding it until you get it into the shape you want basically. Now let's just get that end bit nice and flat and make sure the curve is more or less the same as the other one. So anyway, I've spent most of the afternoon and most of the evening now, as it's 11 PM. I've got my sears up to shape. As you can see, I've cut a notch, or a knock I believe they call it, in one of them, and I've marked the second one, and I'll show you how to file it. I'm going to have to call that part 2. So I've got 3 files. This one's a triangular one, which I use to start off the notch, and I use a circular one to make the hole, and then I use a flat one to tidy it up. So you start something like this. You just start with my triangular file. You could use any file really, you could drill a hole in it, and then file it out. Doesn't make much difference. If you start the cut like that, and then as you go down, as you round it off, go down the way that the string will be attached, because the string will be kind of pulling down at this angle, and I marked 15mm from the top, and just file it out, and then get your string, your paracord or whatever you're using to string your bow. Just make sure it fits in the notch nicely, and we're almost there. So that's part 2 of my video. Next part will show the fitting the rods into the pipe, and then we'll string it up, and then I've got to get hold of some arrows and we'll go out and test it. Anyway, that's part 2. Thanks very much for watching. It's my flippy screen gone.